Hello and welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. Today we are going to discuss a topic which is unusual for legally speaking. Today we are going to delve in the world of art. But because our show is legally speaking, it will also delve into law. What I'm talking about is India's first lawyer who, in a sense, guides people into buying art, is also into philanthropy. We will get to know a lot about him, about the world of art, and why leading corporates, a lot of people in senior executive positions, a lot of people who are interested in art want to buy genuine art. They don't know what it is about and how to go about buying it. All of this we will get to know today from Advocate Debottam Bose, who, as I said, is India's first lawyer who is into the specific field of what we call art and law. Debottam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tarun. Great to be here.
So, if I may request you in about the coming 2 minutes, if you could share what this world is all about, because a lot of people would be keen to know what you do and where is this whole area which is unknown to a lot of people. People buy art at galleries, they ask their friends, but what you're talking about is very specific, how to save people from fraud also. But before I ask you more questions, a good introduction from you about what this is all about.
Thank you again, Tarun. Yes. So, as you said, I'm very lucky to be in this space. It's a niche practice, part of a private client practice, where art law is seen as, it's an international practice. So I'm based in London, but I travel to India very frequently. I have a practice in New Delhi. And as you rightly said, art, certainly in the last decade or so, has become very valuable. And as a result, it's seen as an alternative investment. People buy art, they love art, they keep it at their homes, they keep it at their office. But if you buy it correctly, then it also appreciates. Now, you're buying art mainly because you love it and you want to live with it. And that's, I say this to all my friends and clients. But it's also good to know that over a period of time, the value goes up. And it's very important, especially now, because of the prices in the last 10 years have changed so much and only gone up, particularly dealing with artists who are no longer alive, what we call in India modern masters. The fakes and forgeries has become rampant and very sophisticated. Documentations have been forged, which is the easiest thing to do. And then paintings are fakes. So essentially, think about it. If you're buying an expensive property, if you're buying a yacht, you would have lawyers involved who does the due diligence, who would understand the change of hands, the provenance, title. So same when it comes to high value art. And that is what my chamber does. We have a group of experts who would first do all the research about whether that's genuine or not. And then we would do the due diligence to understand the provenance trail, tracing it back to the artist who may not be alive anymore. And it's a lot of fun. You get to meet wonderful people who are collectors. There are a lot of lawyers who are collectors. It's international. So I spend a lot of time between New York, London. These are important art hubs. And in India, I have a practice in New Delhi at the Supreme Court. And then between Mumbai, and I'm originally from Calcutta. So a lot of travel.
I want to understand from you. Recently, art has become very, very big. As you said, lawyers are buying art, industrialists are buying art, a lot of senior executives are buying art, independent businessmen are buying art. Do you think many of them are ignorant that they need, say, somebody like you to, vet the paintings, the originality, fakes are something which a lot of people may not be aware about. All of this, do you think this is a largely unknown space?
You're absolutely right. This has all happened recently. And as I said, people are buying art because Indians they've done very well, professionals. And art is something which is also very aspirational. Once you've bought your homes and you've invested your money, and art comes then next. And in that sense, it is a great investment because you get to live with it. And as I said, over time, it appreciates. What people don't understand, maybe, that because the values have gone up so high, that has really given rise to sophisticated fraudsters. And it's fraud, pure fraud. So, whether you're buying named artists like a Souza or Raza or Hussein or Manjeet Baba or Sabawala, or for that matter, Gaitonde, or artists like Amrita Shergill, collectors, most of them who are buying art, they're not really aware that the level of fraud that goes in the art world. So they are in good faith, they buy, they spend serious money. Just in this instance that I'm back in Delhi, I'm assisting quite a well-known person who's from Delhi, who was offered Padamsee. Now, Padamsee is a very well-known artist who passed away. And a beautiful work was offered from a trusted source. And my name was recommended. I did the due diligence and it turned out to be fake.
Fake.
So this happens a lot, more often than not. Yes, it was a fake, absolutely gorgeous work. But unless you do the due diligence, you do the research, he wouldn't have known. And most importantly, he was spending a lot of money on it. That's the key issue. If you're buying something which is a copy, that's okay, that's your prerogative. But as long you should not be charged for an original work. And my chambers assists in identifying which is a genuine, which is a copy. So it saves you money when you're going to buy it, or assist you when you're actually going to buy because you may not know what to buy.
So you also assist people in what to buy, which is for a lot of businessmen who want to get into this space. Since you already work with these kind of people globally, a lot of Indians also globally, I want to know from you, when people get into this space, a lot of people get into this space when they already passed their 40s also. A lot of youngsters are getting, but I understand when industrialists and all get into this space, there is a certain age that comes with this. What is lacking? Is the study lacking? Or do you think it's the art galleries where people go and pick it up? Do you think that when you get into wines, there is a whole study involved? You undergo what is called as wine tasting courses. Some may travel to France, take the whole circuit, so they understand it better. In art, how do you help people understand all this better?
That's a great question, Tarun, and you're absolutely right. There are barriers to entry. And what happens with a lot of the times, it becomes a closed circuit, and it becomes also not very friendly for the young generation. So I say this to all my friends who are, of course, doing very well professionally. Imagine always have a budget, whatever that budget may be. And if you're struggling with it, think about buying another car for the family. That should be your budget. And any car, whatever is that's a very personal choice. And it's very important to go and meet the artists, living artists. We have such amount of talent in India. We have great art fairs that takes place, first of all, in Delhi. We have art fairs across the world, of course. And I always encourage people to go out there, see art, meet the artists, and familiarize yourself with, being comfortable with the art, because eventually you have to live with the art. It's not so much at that time thinking about the money. The second thing, which is equally important, is just showing interest. A lot of my friends who are married, I always say that, husband and wife, both of you go, because it's a joy to able to travel, to see beautiful museums around the world, including in India, seeing art objects. And when you go to art fairs, you can actually touch the art objects and interact. So all of that helps. And also eventually, when you are buying or when you're thinking of buying an art, get professional advice, because it will make a difference over the long term.
So a professional advice, like someone like you who helps people vets art, do you also guide people into the buying process? Because a lot of people who get into art don't know where to start from. They would at best ask a few of their friends, ki buy from him or buy from this guy, buy from this art gallery. Do you also guide people into this process?
Absolutely right. Yes, that's one of the areas that I work with a lot of young collectors or collectors who are very interested. We have a program where they get to travel with me to certain art fairs. And also then specifically, a lot of them say that, look, they worked on, here's our budget, and that's what we're looking at. And this is for this particular home that we have, or this is the wall space that we have, and please guide us. And my role very much is to point them towards the right direction. And they should be aware of certain important checklist, what they should watch out for. And then it's an immersive process and experience for them.
So, tell A category is of a lot of businessmen who are doing up their homes and offices. B category is a lot of people who are getting into it and are young professionals. Do you think that art is an object of choice for them, can be an object of choice for such people who have, say, budget of a couple of lakhs and not more?
Absolutely. Again, the budget is a very personal decision. And I always mention this to them that, look, you may just end up buying one art a year, and that's absolutely fine. Just make sure that you spend a little time getting to know the artist if they're alive, or if you're buying an artist who's no longer alive. That's where the advice becomes very important, the independent advice that we provide because of the price.
Secondly, do you also guide people on the selling process? A lot of people who want to buy for selling also. They would want to get newer pieces after 3 or 4 years. Is also guidance dependent on what can be sold easily after a few years? Appreciation is one aspect of it, but even sellability is an aspect. Do you think that is also should be considered when you buy something, that whether it can be sold? Some things can't be sold. I mean, it may be possible that a lot of things can't be saleable once they're bought.
That's a very important question. And as an art lawyer, that's one of the most important parameters that we look into. So just prepare for a particular hedge fund. It was an important piece, a Jackson Pollock, which is purely an investment art. And one of the areas that we looked into was the bankability of that work. So essentially, they were going to buy it and they were going to keep it for a set period, 3 years in this instance, and then they would flip it in an auction. They would sell it with a massive profit margin. Now, there were some issues on the provenance, and then I got one of the banks who specializes in art lending to look at the works, look at the work, and they were not comfortable with it in terms of the resale. And my advice, contrary to everybody else who were saying that we should buy this artwork, particularly the dealers and gallerists, etc., my advice as the art lawyer, because I knew specifically the client was buying to sell it after 3 years. And we knew that at that point of sale, there would be question mark and problem. And that's exactly what I advised, and they didn't end up buying it because there was a question mark on the title and provenance chain. And similarly, closer to home in India, I handle a lot of family and estate sales where, the first generation were great collectors. The grandchildren are just not interested in that kind of art. Now, they have no idea about the price of the art that they have. And here is where my chambers handle. We appraise the works, we give them independent evaluation so they can get the best price. And then we strategize as to which is the best option to sell, whether privately or through auctions, etc.
That's a good thing you said. A lot of people have art which they have inherited, but even if they want to say sell it, they don't know how to go about it. So
Absolutely.
that is a very different area that you work into. You get into the guiding, in a sense, position on how to sell it. I would want to know from you, how is the Indian art space looking in these times? Real estate sales are at all-time high. Bombay saw 1 lakh apartments, a lot of them mainly high value being sold. So the market is flush with money, isn't it?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Especially this pandemic. I mean, of course, you've seen record figures, and art is no different. You know, art prices went through record prices during this pandemic. Sales of artists which are known like Amrita Shergill, highest ever in auction. And people have bought art during the pandemic. And this will surprise a lot. They've also ended up buying a lot of fake art. And
They did.
people have also produced a lot of fake art because of the demand and supply. The sad part is that people who don't know much about art, they just go by the names. And these are usually names of artists who are no longer alive. So as a result, there is only finite amount of art work available by an artist who's no longer alive. But since the demand is there, then sadly, people who are selling them, they essentially manufacture these works, and to an unsuspecting buyer who's not got advice or using a trusted source who is abusing their position ends up buying fake art at a premium, and they will only get to know it later on when they ever want to sell it, or which is more embarrassing if somebody comes to their home and then so it's and that's the reality, sadly, because of the knowledge.
I want to ask you, a lot of people renovating or building their houses in metros like Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Chennai. These days, you will know that they all would want to put art or two, many times three or four. How would you advise these people to get into it? Because they have a finite amount of art they want to buy because it's not a corporate office, but still the budget is substantial. I mean, how somebody like you would get into, guiding these kind of people, because they are not big business, but they are somebody who wants to buy genuine art, which appreciates. And there is a lot of discerning audience at this level also.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we do that quite a lot. As I said, I have clients who would come to me with a budget and then they're doing up. And a lot of the times the architects would be involved as well. And I always say to them that if they are open to it, we should commission artists directly
You
who are
should
alive. Yes, absolutely. And as I said, we have such great talent, and they're only going to go, and more their works get shown. That's a great thing. And they also have a relationship, a direct relationship with the artist, and that happens a lot when they commission. It's personalized, but the artist gets full freedom, and it's something very special. And then, of course, there are those who would say that, look, we would also, we are happy to do that, but just a couple of pieces, we would want it as a known name, and that's absolutely fine. And then we go and make sure that we're getting those names and fully vetted, and they're genuine pieces. And if they ever want to sell, it'll only go up in value.
So this art market is seeing an explosion in the recent years. A lot of upwardly mobile people want to be seen buying art, want to show people what they have bought. That's where the fake aspect comes in, because if you're wanting to show people what you've got, it better be original. My question to you would be, have you come across incidents where people have ended up buying fake in this country?
Absolutely. Sadly, I get referred to by existing clients where their friends have bought art, or just and they bought it from well-known spaces, and it's only when they've again tried to sell it, or they've been informed otherwise, and it turned out to be a fake Hussein or a fake Raza, or so that becomes tricky. And our chamber specializes in this, because ultimately it's a small world. Art world is all about relationship.
Yes.
And we do something called ADR, which is alternative dispute resolution. And I specialize in mediation. So we preserve the relationship, and we understand what went wrong. And a lot of the time is also genuine mistake. And then we come up with tailor-made solutions so that both parties understand and accept the outcome. And then they get on with.
One good thing that came out of today's discussion is what you said: when you're actually going to spend on art, it makes sense to get it legally vetted first, so that you don't go wrong at the, in a sense, inception of your journey into the world of art.
Yes, that's right.
Second, very interesting, you spoke about commissioning new work, which gives you a joy of, having commissioned an artwork. Instead of buying something that has already been created, you get into the journey of commissioning. Uh, Debuthan, I would like to thank you for your time and would like to continue this conversation sometime in part two, where there would be other range of topics involving art. A lot of Indian industrialists who are buying it in London, New York, also in this country. But thank you so much for finding time and joining me on today's episode of Legally Speaking. I'm sure the viewers would like this different kind of issue that we have taken up. It's not the usual issue, but it is an issue where art, somebody like me, a lot of my viewers are into buying art and they get to know about it. So I think this is something which we all enjoyed, and I enjoyed talking to you, Debutta.
Thank you, Tarun. Really was a pleasure. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.